Well, hello everybody. Hi.
That's us.
I was waiting for a hi,
Hi,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
That's it. That's it. That's the energy I need. Hi,
Beautiful.
I'm Rachel Evans. I'm your moderator today. I am a paranormal researcher on Paranormal Caught on Camera on the Travel Channel, and that is why I am qualified to be speaking at you. So I'm super excited to be here with y'all today. I love comic books. I obviously love the paranormal, and I am here today with Kyle Starks, the writer of I Hate This Place, and John Moisen, the editor. So thank y'all so much for being here. I just want to, Kyle.
Hi, it's me. I'm
Hello,
Kyle.
hi.
I wrote I Hate This Place
Oh my goodness.
and other things.
You sure did. What
I
else
wrote
did you write?
for Skybound, I wrote Assassination with Erica Henderson, and I wrote Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton with Chris Schweitzer, and I also wrote a Dr. Pepper comic once that I don't think we talk about. But it's very exciting. It's a nice secret to have out there. And John was my editor on
We
all
don't
of
talk
them.
about Dr.
He's,
Pepper.
he's
Even
especially
Dr.
Dr.
Pepper?
Pepper.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Now you're welcome, Gary.
John, what a great segue. Not only the editor of Dr. Pepper comic, but also, please, tell us.
I edit, as Kyle said, I've edited Assassination, Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton, and I Hate This Place, or if you know it by the explicit title, F This Place. And a bunch of other books. Stillwater, Redneck, Outcast. Like, if you've read a Skybound comic in the last few years, chances are you probably read something I've edited or at least had a hand in. So, comics. And just, I don't know, plain old good
Editor.
comics. And Dr. Pepper comics, too.
Editor of all comics. What an honor.
Yes.
Well, y'all, like I said, I'm uniquely excited to be here today, not only because obviously I love the paranormal, but I'm a former employee of Skybound. I love Skybound. I love comic books. And this is just like the intersection of everything. So I have to start off with the obvious. Like, do you believe in the paranormal? John, I'm looking at you.
I can jump in. I do. Because it's so fun to believe in that stuff. That's the thing. Is I feel like I should be a skeptic, and I feel like in some regards I am. But like, it's more fun to believe in this stuff. It's more fun to believe that there are aliens out there and that there are ghosts and Bigfoot. I want to go meet the Loch Ness monster. Like it's too fun to believe in all this stuff. I know it's probably silly, and I know Kyle definitely has a different opinion, which I'll let him get to. But I find it more fun to sort of go along with the ride, and maybe a ghost has haunted my apartment, maybe not. I don't know. I like the what if of it.
So, John, you said that Kyle, you had a different point
John,
of view.
John
What
and
is
I
that
actually just
point
had a
of view?
conversation about this a couple weeks ago. I am not. I hate to say that I'm not, because I just wrote such a good spooky book. Because I love the stories and I love the lore. But I can only live my life by my own personal experiences, and I've not had any. That is to say, this, like I said, John and I talked about this. I think it's less to say, like, if someone said to me, like, my wife believes in ghosts. There's a place in town. I live in Evansville, Indiana. We have a Willard Library. It's one of the most haunted places in America. She worked there, and she's like, ghosts are real. And it's like, well, I've been there, and all I got was books, so I feel differently about that library. But so if someone, I don't negate someone else's experiences, but I can only live my life by my experiences. And I've had nothing good creepy happen. Only real life terrors, like diabetes.
That is very horrifying. But that's so interesting that you don't not that you don't believe in ghosts, but you're not necessarily like a paranormal fanatic, because you wrote, like you said, such an incredible paranormal comic book.
I love it. I
so
love the subject matter, but yeah, I don't have a personal experience to relate. Like, I love a good story. Like, I love a good vacation story too,
Yeah. Do you think, if anything, it's kind of more dynamic that the perspective is almost coming from a more skeptical place? Because I don't know. That's interesting.
I love horror movies. I adore horror movies, and I think it's the same thing. It's just a specific type of story for when I'm consuming. Because like I said, if someone
Yeah.
said like if someone said like my wife, I don't say, well, that's patently untrue. Science says otherwise, my dear. Because I didn't have the I don't choose. I only choose to believe my own experiences, which are non-existent. And I'm skeptical that way because I'm like, well, let's go see what that sound is. Like something's making that sound. Oh, I'm no fun.
Right.
I'm no fun at all, John.
Do you think that any of that kind of shined through in the comic? Like, do you think there's a character that you specifically relate to the most?
That I relate to the most? It's funny. It's funny. I got asked,
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of promotion for this book, and I got asked today if there's a character that I've written that was most similar to myself, and I answered, I try to only write likable characters that people want to spend time with. So I don't think I don't think I've written a Kyle Starks yet, and that's probably why I'm doing so well as a storyteller. I really thought the thing is like about this book is these characters, Gabby and Trudy, are dropped into this ranch, which is haunted, and there's paranormal, and there's ghosts, and there's supernatural in the wood. There's so many things happening, and I thought, Trudy is kind of a survivalist. Like at first, maybe she would have been, let's figure this out, but everything happens to her. Like you can't question it. Like she sees it with her eyes. She's looking like there's no way to be skeptical when it's confronted with you. So
Right.
I'd say probably just how Trudy is very matter of fact about her intentions and what her priorities are. Maybe I'm closest to her. Possibly Big Mike, just because he's a big likable guy, and he's also not the main character, so you don't have to worry about him.
You mentioned earlier that you love horror. And at the core of it, and John, you as well. I know you've edited a lot of horror comics and you love horror. At the core of it, this is a horror story about isolation and about, being alone and how to gather resources and, deal with something outside of your control. So how much of this do you see as a paranormal story, and how much of it do you see as just a straight up horror?
Kyle, I'll let you.
I think here's my thing I like about, because I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer that question, because I think the thing is it's both. And the thing that I love about I love horror, and I've only done comedy. I've only done published comedy to this point, and this is my first non-comedy thing. And the setting for Rutherford Ranch lets me do all these different horror tropes. And in the same way, it lets me do paranormal. You know what I mean? It allows me that through the course of these stories that I get to tell, I'll get to tell so many different types of stories. Just as first arc, there's a haunted ranch, there's monsters in the woods, there's a slasher killer on the property, which is Itchy, who's an armed robber who's looking for this money that was buried somewhere on the property. The great thing about it is that it's not just one genre. It's that I get to dance among all these things. So it's interesting because I never thought of breaking up the two. In comics, it's really hard to do things that are traditional scary things in movies. Like you can't do a jump scare. I think it's been done once in comics, and it was by Stephen King's son. So obviously he was able to pull it off. So the certain things that you can do that are scary are harder to do. For me to be to my head, it's a horror thing, but maybe it is closer to more of a paranormal thing. Because to me, it's more like what's happening here, and than it is maybe traditionally scary. It's more unnerving, right?
It's kind of in that Skinwalker
It's
Ranch.
100%. Skinwalker Ranch
place.
was 100% an influence for sure.
I love that because Skinwalker Ranch is just especially in the paranormal community, you've just never heard of
That's
anything
exactly
like
right.
it.
So it's funny that you bring up Skinwalker Ranch because I was listening to a podcast and I'd never heard of Skinwalker Ranch before, and I became fascinated. I was like, why has there not been a story or a book where there's everything in one place? There's UFOs, there's monsters, there's entities, there's weird things, there's things that aren't even categorical. What's the word? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so interested by this. And I saw Robert Kirkman. I saw Daddy Kirkman at New York Comic Con a few years ago. And I was like, hey, do you think this is an interesting setting? Just a setting. Just a place for some other story to exist. And he's like, yeah, I think it's great. We should do that. And I'm like, no, that was just a place. It wasn't a story. And the story is what matters. And when the pandemic hit, I emailed Mr. Kirkman and I was like, hey, I'd love some work. Is there anything you guys are looking for? He's like, yeah, you should do that thing that you pitched me, which I did not do. that you pitched to me at New York Comic Con a few years ago, and I was like, oh, I'm going to figure out the story. But yeah, Skinwalker Ranch for sure, because I'd never heard of, and I don't know why this is the first story that I know of where people are like, everything's there. And so part of the thing, and for me, when I'm hearing these stories about Skinwalker Ranch, that I hope people bring into reading I Hate This Place, is why is this happening? Like, why this place, right? Because I think that's part of it. Like, there's a sort of a lost island, mysterious, aside from all these great spooky action, sort of undertoned heart stories that I want to tell with the spookies and the girls.
With the spookies and the girls. Speaking of the spookies and the girls, what a like strong choice to create this like, very alternative love story, definitely alternative to like your perspective. So like, how was that experience writing these two characters and really understanding like where they're coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I think representation is really important. I think it's really important. And so I endeavored for that in all of my projects. I really wanted to tell a horror story about a couple, like a haunted house couple that we've Amityville that we've seen a million times, that I had no interest in. And I just like a straight married couple is, who cares? Like it doesn't even interest me, and I'm a straight married man. So it really, I don't think it even added an element, but it just made the whole story more interesting to me. And it gives some opportunities that maybe you wouldn't necessarily have with a straight married couple, though I'm by no means trying to speak for someone else's experience. I think love is love, and ultimately the story of Trudy and Gabby are two people who love each other and are trying to make it in the world, and now their world is filled with literal monsters.
Yeah, like you can't necessarily relate to their exact background, but the undertone of like love, connection, survival is universal. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that a lot. John, was this like, when Kyle came to you with this, were you like, okay, I guess we're doing everything with lesbians this time?
No, I actually was super familiar with Skinwalker Ranch. I grew up reading Man, Myth, Monster, like the encyclopedia about paranormal stuff. Like I grew up, on paranormal stuff. So I was pretty intimately familiar, or at least aware of Skinwalker Ranch. And when Kyle brought it to me and, made the point that nobody has ever done a story like this, I was like, oh yeah, like this is absolutely a book that needs to be done. And I think the thing, going back to the characters of Trudy and Gabby, I think for us at Skybound, sort of our guiding light, our North Star is that every book needs to have characters that people care about. It's anybody can do a genre story, but I think what Skybound and what Kyle does really well is stories with a lot of heart and characters, people that you care about. It's on his previous book that we did, 6 Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton, it was this ridiculous book, but the people at the core of it are people you care about, and that's kind of what attracted me the most to I Hate This Place. Is it is a horror story with everything being thrown at this couple, but they love each other, and that comes through in I think every aspect of the storytelling and their decision making, and that ultimately is like what appealed to me and appealed to us here at Skybound, is that it's it's characters that people can get behind and root for, and you ultimately want to see them succeed,
not get killed by murder ghosts.
That's what I'm saying. As soon as I saw them, and I was like, I hope they don't get killed by murder ghosts. So since this, I'm hoping, since this is a Skinwalker Ranch moment, and there's so many different creatures, monsters, ghosts, what have you, did you have to what's your brain filled with right now? Like, how much did you have to dig into these things to be able to put them into the story?
I mean, I think I did a fair amount of research. Like I said, I love a spooky story. I loved Art Bell. Like, I loved Art Bell, and I think that was certainly would be an influence in terms of my desire to consume all of these sort of different stories. Like I said, stories to me. But I love horror movies. I think I just love genre. I love playing with genre so much. And the opportunity to do horror and to do a lot of genre was so enticing to me. I'm so thankful that Skybound let me do something not funny, though I think it has maybe a couple funny moments in there because I can't help myself. But I think all good things have a little bit of everything in them, basically, except for maybe Kool-Aid. I guess you don't want to put all the Kool-Aids in there. That's gross.
That'd be really disgusting. I would agree with that. So now that you've like dipped your toe or foot or half body, you know, you're in the pool
I'm
of
in
horror.
it, yeah.
You're knee deep, as they say. How, like, is this you? Are you going forward? I mean, obviously you are large, you contain multitudes. You're not one thing.
Yeah.
But do you feel excited about doing more horror in the
Well,
future?
I just did a horror book for a horror comedy book for Image called Old Head. So I'd kind of done a little horror stuff before. It's got like dick monsters and Dracula in it.
Not
And I'm actually working on another horror comedy for another, because I like it. You know, it's less that I don't want to do comedy or that I only want to do horror, but horror and comedy are very similar in so many ways in terms of storytelling, because they both rely on the pacing, they both rely on tone, they both rely on setup and payoff. If you don't have those things, then all of it doesn't, just like the scares don't land, the jokes don't land, and it's sort of the same process. So I think it's easier for me to do something that's so similar, though maybe the exact opposite, right? Like the intentions are a complete opposite. Than to me, like trying to do a romance, which I think it has a lot more, has different moves in it than horror and comedy do. I want to do everything. You know, I think like anyone who I want to do everything. I don't know why I said anything. I mean everything. Anyone who creates things, I think, wants to branch out. I love comedy. I think especially as the world gets darker every year, like it brings me joy to bring other people even the 30 minutes of laugh that they get out of a trade or whatever it would be. I think like if that's my legacy, like that's a great legacy. But if it's also, he also gave people the creeps. Like I'm down for that too. Creeps through my work, not creeps personally. Not that, please.
No, personally, zero creeps.
Don't,
zero creeps.
Please, no.
No, but I think that's interesting what you said about like this world, the society, the world we live in right now being awful a little bit. And I actually find horror to be a little cathartic. John, do you feel that way at all?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I think I know when everything around me is sort of screwed up. Like I like reading, about people that are in much worse situations. If during the pandemic, I hunkered down and watched a lot of horror movies, and it was one of those things where it's like, well, I'm stuck in my apartment and everything's awful, but at least not zombies aren't eating me. Like it's one of those things where I think, and I think going back to like what Kyle said about horror and comedy, I think that horror and comedy share a lot of DNA. I think getting laughs out of people is, I think, just as hard, if not harder, than scaring people. And I think if you can do one, you can do the other. And for me, it's when everything's terrible outside, I think that because those two genres share DNA, I think you can kind of dive into either. I think a lot of, people like myself and both of you as well, I think, it's easy to dive into either of those genres and sort of find a nice escape. And when they're combined together, when you got that peanut butter and chocolate, then it's even better.
I would agree. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. Reese's Cup.
Exactly. Delicious comment, Kyle. We spoke a little bit earlier about the role that isolation plays, and I was wondering, Kyle, if you could kind of speak to that, how that isolation shaped some of the monsters or situations.
I think more, and this is, I think this is in the back matter, actually. The first issue, which came out this week, so I hope everyone went and picked it up. I Hate This Place, at their favorite comic book store. By me, Kyle Starks, and Ian Papelin, and Lee Lawton, and John Moysen. Plug. I talk about in the back of the first issue, and is that, like, I don't want to be a bummer to sort of how fun this could have been when I was like, let me tell you about the time my mom levitated or whatever. But like those things, like those aren't the things that scare me. Like even if me and we're like, oh no, we took a wrong turn, we're in Werewolf Town, I'd be like, let's just have the picnic. You know what I mean? I just don't have that. I'm not scared of that. But the things that I am scared of are the things that happen to these characters outside of these monsters. I'm scared of my loved ones being in danger. I'm scared of being in situations where I can't resolve them. There's no fix. Like just today, my dishwasher didn't drain. I Googled it, right? That my dishwasher not draining isn't scary to me because I can Google it. But these girls can't Google what to do with your UFO monster woods haunted property, And to me, to think of these characters in that situation, where not only are you in a situation that you can't leave, they're stuck there, but also your loved one that you brought here or that you're here with is in perpetual danger. Like those are real fears to me. And also like bugs, like I don't like bugs. So there's probably some scary bugs coming up. But I think like isolation, like I'm a professional comic book writer. So like I'm at home all the time. Like I talk to maybe my wife and kids on a daily basis. I don't fear isolation, but I hate the idea of not being able to leave my isolation. And I think for me, that's what's scary about these girls' situation, because they can't leave. It will follow them. The ranch will follow them, which is established issue 1 and shows up again in issue 2. Yeah, so like that's what scares me. Is like, yes, if there was terrible monsters in the woods, I wouldn't like that. That'd be super frightening. But I think it's for me, it's like, you know, like it's like a comedy is the same way. Like if it's just a bunch of jokes, it's only as funny as the jokes. But if you have real human characters doing ridiculous situations that aren't forced, that's what's funny. It's funny going on and sharing these things. And for me, it's like if I just had a bunch of monsters and ghosts, it's like I guess it would be scary. But it's scary to me. It's like here are people that hopefully the readers like. I like them. I like spending time with Gabby and Trudy. I think they're great. And you don't want to see them in danger, but they are in danger. And more so, it's not just the physical danger; it's all these other sort of challenging things that they have to deal with. Especially, you know, poor Trudy, like, is a survivalist. She's a real doomsday prepper, and so for her to be in a situation where you couldn't have prepared for it, like, just imagine how awful that must be.
That is so interesting to like put somebody in that situation who has so much control.
Yeah. And also, like, you want to have characters that have some sort of skills, like, that can be useful later in some way or another. But it's like, you know, Gabby's whole thing is like she's sort of an eternal optimist. Like, again, think about how awful that must be, where it's like you always try to find the bright side, but what's the bright side of being trapped on the worst place on earth? And with the one you love, again, like, what's the upside? What's the silver lining to that? And I think those horrors are much greater than whoever the Horn Man is or whatever the Horn Man is. He's pretty scary too. I don't know why I said that. He's pretty scary too, but I don't have to deal with him directly. So I don't have that fear that Gabby and Trudy will have.
Speaking of not dealing with him directly, has doing this made either of you want to explore the paranormal in any way? Like, do you want to do a ghost hunt? Do you want to go find Bigfoot?
I just heard about this Bigfoot thing in like Galveston. I can't remember where it was. One of those touristy places where they like it ends up you're supposed. What was the bit? Anyway, there's a great Bigfoot ride somewhere. What a dumb transition I did. Where they trick you, like you're supposed to be going on one ride, and it ends up like suddenly you're like saving Bigfoot. Someone's gonna be like, I know exactly what I heard about it from Cullen Bunn, and I should have known the name. But as he was telling me the story, it's like they take you on this bus trip, and it's supposed to find Sasquatch, but then they're like, oh no, there's drug dealers here. So the bus like goes on the run, and it goes into this warehouse, and then like the lights come on, and the drug dealers have like captured Bigfoot. Anyway, Cullen Bunn's like telling me the story, and I'm like, more and more like, it's the best experience I've ever had, and how I wish like that was the experience I had. Bigfoot saves you from the drug dealers at the end. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's like everything about the story is like the best thing I ever heard. I will say this: I don't mean to jump ahead of you, John. Is like I am skeptical, but I would say I'm more interested in having experiences that I can use, and you know, I'm more open to doing things just for the experience of it than I would have been 2 years ago, for sure.
That's
John
awesome.
is like, I want to see all the ghosties. I want to capture them in jars.
Oh no, I looked into joining MUFON, all of the UFO organizations. I am all about it. I want to find a ghost. I want to take a ride on a spaceship. Take me up.
Beam me up.
Fire in the sky. That's good.
Very same. Let's go ghost hunting together. So, Kyle, what are your biggest influences? Like, growing up and also now, because I feel like that changes. Like, there's a nostalgic favorite, but then there's like a current muse type of moment.
For comics, for storytelling?
For storytelling.
Man, you know, I've been so lucky. When I was, I read comics since I was a kid, but I read just like the sort of the basic ones. But I worked at this comic book shop for 10 years, but this comic book shop also did video rentals. It did bought and sell used CDs. It did paperbacks. It did baseball cards. It did pornography, and it did comics. And we got to read any book. I got to check out any movie. I got to listen to almost any my entire life has just been consuming. So So like all those things, I could be like this one thing or these 5 things.
Do you have a favorite comic book of all time,
A
or is
favorite
that
comic
too
book of
hard?
all time is too.
Too hard.
I mean, there's a bunch. Like I love a maxi series, which are to me, only Skybound. Don't mess it up. Preacher, Lock and Key, Bone, even Six Gun. I think Six Gun is a really underrated book. Why the Last Man. I love those types of stories that are like. Also, all the new universe books, Marvel that made it far enough, they're all like 36 issues long or 50 issues long. Like if those are done well, where it's clearly there's a plan, those are the things that have definitely been the biggest influence on me, and really in a bad way. I always thought for Preacher, I don't know if you've read Preacher, it's this great meandering story, and it wraps around, right? Yeah. And I always thought, I was like, Garth Ennis crafted this this huge grid, this complicated grid. And so when I work, see, John already knows. So that was my memory of it. It's like everything leads into everything. There's no accidents, right? So when I write, that's how I write. And it's a crazy person way to do it because I asked to do a pitch and I was like, here's the whole story. And Chris Schweitzer, who did the art for Six Guys, he's like, you don't have to do that. Like, just give him a bit. I'm like, no. I have to know all the story, which means every part, because every part leads to the next part. It's crazy. I reread Preacher over the last year, and I'm like, oh, he's just making stuff as he goes along, which is very upsetting because it made me a crazy person, right? So I guess in many ways, Preacher is like maybe the biggest influence on my writing. I will say, in terms of like comics right now, like there's a ton of super exciting horror comics. Certainly the two that John, like Stillwater and Redneck, are 2 amazing horror comics. Anything James Tynion does, I think Nice House. I hesitate to talk about other publishers, but Nice House on the Lake is amazing. Something in the Woods is Killing the Children is really good. It's a really exciting time to be doing like that, which is not why we did it at all. It's just because the pandemic made me sad and I didn't want to do comedy for a minute. But like, it's a great time to be doing horror comics. Like, I'm super excited that right now the readers, the direct market readers, are willing to try another genre besides superheroes and sort of like noir spy thing. Like, it's really exciting. So, and it's exciting that there's good work. So hopefully, I know, like, we're contributing to that.
I am so excited to read this. Like, I've needed this. You were right. Now. There is not. There's not a Skinwalker Ranch comic out there that maybe there is and somebody's gonna yell at me. That's fine. Yell at me. I'm saying there's not. And I'm like so excited that you've put such an interesting story within this world. And now knowing that you meditate on the plot and make sure that it like spans out.
Nothing is accidental, Rachel. Nothing is accidental.
I am going to.
Oh no, we've had phone calls. It is all very.
I am going to devour this. And this being, please put yourself over.
It's I Hate This Place from Skybound Comics. It's so good. It's out now.
Everywhere right now.
It's everywhere.
I want to put in the plug for Artyom Topolin. The art is amazing in this book.
Artyom's doing a great job. And he's doing a great job. I think this is like Artyom's first sort of major work, so he's killing it. We do have a dirty title, which is to us the original title still. If you want that original title, you're going to have to put pre-orders in. Unless your store is like the hippest store. Like to me and John, like the scripts don't say I hate this place; they say something else. And because I think that at this place is the tone of this book. Yeah. That's what if you put me on this ranch, every moment I'd be like F this place. So yeah, if you want that title, make sure you get that pre-order in.
That's what I keep.
When Kyle pitched the book, it was called F This Place, and we were like, "There's no way we'll go with this." And then we managed to actually make it. Like, I still can't believe feels like we're getting away with a crime doing F This Place.
Every time I think of it, that's what I think of. I think of F This Place. I Hate This Place is also very accurate and a very good title. Yeah. So, like we said, it is available at your comic book store right now. Go pick it up because oof. So pretty, so good. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks for doing such a great job.
Oh man.
Hey, Rachel, where would we find you on social media?
Yeah. You know where I'm a ghost.
Oh no.
Thank you for doing that. You can find me at Rachel Sam Evans on the internet and go watch The Circle. It's out on Netflix right now. Kyle.
I'm at the Kyle Starks almost everywhere. I have a KyleStarks.com. Come find me. Let's hang out. Let's talk about spookies.
John?
John Moisen, at John Moisen. I don't know, everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want to follow me. I have a letterbox if you want to do that too. Whatever. I'm
getting on your letterbox. I didn't know you had a letterbox. Oh, I'm going to get in there and criticize.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I watch lots of horror movies. Let's talk horror movies over on Letterboxd.
Well, I'm excited to have a new ghost busting team. Thank you. You've already agreed to it. You didn't read the contract, I'm sure, but it was in there.
I'm the first one dead.
I know, and I'm sorry. No, we're gonna have to. You're gonna have to survive because I need like more issues of this. But thank y'all, and please, everyone, enjoy the Skybound Expo.
Ooh, spooky.
Ooh.